Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Client Classroom. Today I want to talk about something that catches a lot of retirees off guard once they start getting onto Medicare, and that's something called IRMAA. Now, a lot of times when I bring that up, first reaction from people is, who's IRMAA? But IRMAA is not a person. It's actually an acronym, and it stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. Now that sounds overly complicated, but really all it means is this. If your income is above certain levels, even by a relatively small amount, you may end up paying higher Medicare premiums. So in other words, your Medicare costs are not based only on your age or when you enroll. They can also be affected by your income. And here's the part that surprises a lot of people. Medicare actually looks at your income from 2 years earlier to determine whether IRMAA applies. So the decisions you make today about your money can actually affect your Medicare premiums a couple years from now. And that's why retirement income planning becomes more than just a tax conversation. It also becomes a healthcare cost conversation, because even a one-time spike in income can push you into a higher IRMAA bracket. And depending on the situation, those additional Medicare premiums can really add up. And really, most IRMAA planning comes down to being intentional about managing taxable income. That's really the core idea we're talking about. For example, a lot of retirees look at doing Roth conversions in early retirement years. And Roth conversions can absolutely make sense as part of a long-term strategy, but there's a trade-off. When you do a Roth conversion, you create taxable income in that year. So if someone converts too much all at once, it could increase their Medicare premiums 2 years later. Now that doesn't automatically mean the Roth conversion was a bad decision. In some cases, paying somewhat higher Medicare premiums may still create better long-term tax savings overall. The key is simply coordinating the strategy intentionally instead of accidentally crossing those income thresholds. Another strategy people use fairly often is something called a qualified charitable distribution, or QCD. Now again, that term sounds technical, but the concept itself is pretty straightforward. If you're eligible, a QCD allows money to go directly from your IRA to a charity. And the benefit is that it can satisfy required minimum distributions without increasing your taxable income the same way a normal IRA withdrawal would do. So that can be very helpful from an IRMAA planning standpoint. And it's also important to pay attention to other income sources that can unexpectedly increase your income in a given year. And those are things like large capital gains, selling appreciated investments, dividend income, or even large one-time asset sales. All of those can potentially affect your Medicare premiums later on. And honestly, one of the biggest advantages in IRMAA planning is simply starting early. The earlier you begin thinking about this, especially in those years before Medicare starts, the more flexibility you usually have. You may be able to spread Roth conversions out over multiple years, coordinate withdrawals more efficiently, and avoid creating unnecessary income spikes all at once. So, when you really step back and look at it, IRMAA is really about understanding how taxes, withdrawals, and healthcare premiums all work together. Because in retirement planning, very few decisions happen in isolation. Everything tends to connect. If you'd like help reviewing whether IRMAA may affect your retirement income strategy, we're always happy to help. You could schedule a time by visiting caserta-dejong.com or by giving us a call. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time in the Client Classroom.